Like, it's important to not stop talking on stream because essentially you'll end up losing viewership if you're silent.
Welcome in, everybody. I'm RickLovesBacon with my buddy ADJMass here. Welcome to our first episode on our series on You're Streaming Wrong. Today's topic is going to be Don't Shut Up.
In this video, we'll be talking about tips and tricks and stories about avoiding dead air while streaming. Have you ever gone into a new stream to check out a new streamer and they've just sat there without talking?
You know, you see people, you want to look for a new person to watch, a new personality. Maybe there's a new game out that you want to check out, but you're looking for somebody to talk to, but you go in there and the broadcaster is just quiet, not saying a thing. What about you?
There was a game on Steam that I wanted to check out, and I wanted to see what the game was about because the Steam description wasn't very good. And so I turned to Twitch, and with the way I work, I don't go for the big streamers, the people at the top. I go viewer count lowest to highest, and then I just look at the thumbnail to see, one, who has a webcam, and two, who has put a little bit of work into their stream. The issue I have is I go into somebody's stream where they have a decent webcam and they just aren't talking. They're just playing a video game and not talking about what they're doing or anything. And so I don't feel obligated to stay because they're not trying to engage with anybody anyway.
And see, and what I've noticed, I've asked several people, it's like, how much time do you give a streamer to say something before you leave? Because you're obviously gonna see a streamer for the first time that you've never seen. You're curious about whatever they're playing, but sometimes they just don't say anything. And people that I've spoke to, so as far as viewers go, it's 20 to 30 seconds. So if the streamer doesn't say anything between 20 and 30 seconds, they will just leave and look for somebody else. Because for a viewer, especially a lot of viewers are lurkers and they want somebody to entertain them. And if somebody's being quiet, that's obviously not going to happen. Now, talking to other streamers, how often, when you go to see a stream, how much time do you give them before they say anything?
Me as a streamer, I know how difficult it is to just sometimes come up with thoughts and voice them, or your intent in like focusing on the game really hard so you're not talking at that moment. So I typically give them 2 to 3 to 5 minutes depending on the game and the situation. But if I feel like if you haven't said anything within 5 minutes, I'm not invested in your content anymore, and I'm just gonna find somebody else to watch.
Yeah, I usually give people about maybe a minute, 2 minutes. I'll watch them to see if they say anything. And in that time frame, if they haven't said anything, then that's it. I'm out. Time to look for somebody else to watch. Well, I'm a daytime streamer. You know, technically, actually, somebody told me this. Hey, you stream during business hours. Technically, that's true. Because technically, I'm 9 to 5 streamer. And I know during those times, my chat's not going to be very active. Why? Because people are at work. The people that are watching me, most of them are at work. But I know it's my job to make sure to keep talking because they're there to be entertained. And it doesn't matter what I'm talking about, whether I'm commentating on the game, talking about the game, which I guess is the same thing as commentating, you know, just talking about what happened in my general life or whatever topic I'm interested in, you know, because people are there to watch you and they can't always talk. So it's always important to stay talking. Because one of our friends said, hey, I look for somebody to listen to because I need entertainment. I'm doing chores around the house and I turn to Twitch for my entertainment.
Right. And there's those people, those viewers that use Twitch like a podcast, right? Like, or YouTube, where they put on content to just have in the background while they're doing other things. I work Monday through Friday and you stream Thursdays and Fridays, where I'm at work, but I can throw it on in the background and still do my job and still get that type of entertainment without having to be invested. Where I know from your stream, you get a lot of lurkers because you stream during those business hours where people are usually at work. And so they can throw on your stream and still get the entertainment with audio, not necessarily with video. So if you're just silent while streaming, they're just going to hear game sounds or your music or whatever's going on. And that's not necessarily a source of entertainment anymore.
What's some advice that we could give people to keep talking. Like, just talk. It doesn't matter what it is. You just can't be silent. One of our friends mentioned dead air, and he used to be a radio personality, and he said that dead air is louder than anything else.
Some of the ones that I've heard, or when you're playing a game, you talk about what you're thinking about in the game, like what your next moves are, what you're thinking of doing, how the last 30 seconds or whatever made you feel. It depends on the game, right? If you're playing a story-based game, it's how did the past events make you feel up to this point? What do you think is going to happen in the future? If you're playing an FPS, you can talk about your strats, what you're thinking, like where you're thinking of aiming, where you think somebody's going to pop out at.
Because there's so many times that you watch people that are streaming with other people and you can hear them talking to their chat, which is causing the streamer that you're watching to not say anything because it stops them right in their tracks.
Yeah, and that actually can go off to one of those tips as well for avoiding dead air is streaming with friends, streaming with other people, right? Now you have to be careful, those people that you do stream with, making sure, one, they know you're streaming. Two, they're not going to say anything stupid that'll get you in trouble. And three, that they're willing to use push to talk or not try to take over your stream. Because I have streamed with people, even if they weren't streaming, just playing games, where they're in Discord and they are trying to take over. It's not that they're necessarily trying to take over the stream. They just talk and end up taking over the stream because when you have too many people talking, it muddies the sound, right? Like the streamer can't get through. It just sounds busy. We'll touch on this more in the next video, but that's another tip for avoiding the dead air is streaming with friends. Very early on, you and I started streaming together and we would be able to riff off each other, but we also used push to talk so it didn't get too crazy. But yeah, streaming with friends that you can banter with is a good tip for avoiding that dead air as well, because especially if you have somebody that you're streaming with that is good at avoiding dead air, because they can spark a conversation.
And also, don't be afraid to get picky with those friends that you stream with. If you got somebody that's very boring or negative, it doesn't matter if they're your good friend. Remember, you're streaming. You're here to entertain. You're here to talk. Don't stream with them. I'm not shy about telling people that I find boring, that are my friends, hey, I'm not playing with you because you bring down the mood. Seem rude, but you want to play with other personalities even though they're not streamers. What do you do to keep talking on your stream?
I just talk. Whatever comes into my head comes out of my mouth. And it took a lot of practice because when I started streaming, I was very much the streamer that relied on chat to help me talk. And that's kind of the thing, is you can't rely on that when you're starting streaming because you do not have the audience that is there to engage with you yet. And you have to come up with the content to talk so that people stick around. You can't sit there in silence and expect somebody to start chatting with you when you're not starting the conversation or bringing anything for people to converse with you about. So when I started streaming, I started with a lot of story-based games. Starting with story-based games is I would talk about the story up until that point, or what I was expecting to happen, or what I would like to see happen, until I started to get that audience that came in and would chat with me, and then I could talk to them about the game or about their lives or whatever started to go there. And that's kind of how I built my community, was having a conversation with them as opposed to having a conversation to them. Whereas when you're starting streaming, you have to have the conversation to people, because those 2 to 3 viewers that are coming in to check out your stream to begin with, they don't know who you are. So my strategy to start off with was talk about myself and or talk about the game I was playing. What did you do when you were starting off, and or now to keep your stream from going silent?
When I first started off, I was that guy that was just that guy that thought, hey, I'm just gonna sit here and eventually people gotta talk to me. That's what I was thinking. I'm not saying that out loud. I'm just sitting thinking. That's what I was thinking. But over time, you start watching more people and you start learning from watching other broadcasters. You're like, that dude just keeps talking and talking, and there are quite a few people actually watching them. And then over time, you kind of learn to just not shut up and talk, which is actually very, very important. Like whether it be, I had to like ingrain it in my head. Hey, commentate on the game, commentate on what people are doing in the game. You know, randomly tell a story that probably nobody's going to care about, but you know what? They're entertained by it because it's a story. People like stories, and that's what essentially we are. We are storytellers. We're telling a story about our game. We're telling a story about what's going on in the game. We're telling a story about how we feel about the game. And we're practically sometimes telling a story about our lives. So what tips or ideas would you give somebody to keep talking? Because that's what this is all about. People need to learn that you have to keep talking. Nobody wants to hear what they call in the radio business dead air.
Talk to yourself throughout the day, whether you're streaming or not. Talk out loud. It's one of the things I started doing probably 3 years ago, and when I started to take streaming a little bit more serious, I would talk to myself about the things I was doing within the day, right? Like I'm tweeting something and I'm just talking out loud. I'm verbally expressing my thoughts because that's what needs to be happening on stream as well. Another tip that I'm actually starting as of recently is to take classes on storytelling, because I know that that is one of my weak spots, is actually telling a story. I can make statements, but I don't tell stories very well. Role reversal. What tips do you have for people to stop being silent on stream and avoiding dead air?
So I got some advice from another streamer who went to go see a comedian, and this comedian said that he takes notes about everyday life. And I actually took that to heart, because it's like, okay, there are things that happen in your daily life, whether it be at home, out and about, grocery shopping, whatever it may be, and all of a sudden you come with a thought, something happens that you're like, oh, well, I can talk about this later on stream. You forget about it. You know, we walk around with a computer in our pockets every day. You have notepads, you have a recorder. Take notes of what happened. That way you don't forget it. Because trust me when I tell you, there's something that probably happened 2 days ago that I was like, you know what? This would be something for me to talk about on stream. Once I start streaming, I completely forgot about it. And it's not like I'm even thinking about it. It's just completely gone.
Yeah, and that's like the thing is you can be hanging out every day and then something funny or interesting or whatever happens during that day, but the second you start streaming, especially for people that are just starting, they want they're nervous and they don't know what to talk about, and they blank because they're thinking about, this will touch on one of our topics that's to come in the future. They start looking at their numbers and then they're not seeing those numbers increase, and they get distracted or defeated, and they just don't know what to say anymore, so they just kind of sit there silent. But if they had notes of things that have happened throughout the week or through that day or whatever, they could then refer back to those notes, or like have them up on their computer or something, or on their phone or tablet or whatever, just like on the table, and then they check it and they're like, oh yeah, this thing happened, and then they can start talking about it, and then it's no longer silent.
Yeah, at that point, you know, you have those notes there. You can be like, oh yeah, this happened. I was at the store, saw this thing, that dude tripped, it was funny, I laughed, now I'm telling you the story. I mean, it's a life event. It's a story. and people can relate to those. And you know what? You should talk about it. It doesn't matter what it is. Just talk about it. Be like, this happened. I'm going to tell you because it's interesting to me. And you don't have to explain why you're telling it. You just do it. Really, you just do it. You just keep talking. It doesn't matter what it is. Just keep talking about it. Don't shut up.
Well, and there's the other side of it too, is you can repeat that story multiple times throughout a stream, because the person that was there at minute 1, second 1, probably, or could not be sometimes, there at hour 4, right? The likelihood of somebody sitting in a chat for 4 hours long or whatever isn't very high. People have things to do. Twitch is very much, this is one of those things where a lot of casters get annoyed because their chat's not active, right? People got things to do. People are busy. We're very busy. Like, I know myself, I work a full-time job and then stream and do the YouTube stuff and create offline assets and learn things for my day-to-day job, and then have to edit videos and all of these things where I'm very busy. But I also like to hop in people's Twitch streams and have some background noise. If you're silent, not telling these stories, people aren't going to stick around, because I'll pick on Dead by Daylight streamers. You can sit there and listen to generator sounds for so long. You're not going to sit there for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour listening to somebody repair a generator or get killed on a hook for an hour. But if you tell a story for hour 1 and then you tell some other stories or talk about the game or whatever, and then around comes hour 2, you might have a whole nother audience at that point, and then you can tell that story again, and then that whole another group of people can hear that story, and maybe you get a few people to stick around after that story.
And that's just annoying, man. It's like when you go look for a new streamer and you just want to relax and chill there to see if they say anything before you start talking to them, but they don't say a word. That's one of my streaming pet peeves as a viewer. Watching people that don't say a thing. Kind of going to lead into our next video, which is going to be talking about the importance of push to talk.
Okay. I can say that there's that statistic that is, you have 30 seconds or something like that to make a first impression, and especially on the internet where people are looking for content quickly and it's easily deliverable, and there's so much content out there on the internet that you only have a finite amount of time to grab a viewer's attention, and if you are being silent, you're not going to grab that attention.
Well, yeah, just like our friend said, it was like, oh yeah, I only give people 30 seconds and then I leave and go look for somebody else that is talking. Because think about it, there are thousands of Twitch streamers out there.
Millions.
There are millions of Twitch streamers out there. There's even more viewers than streamers. So you definitely want to keep talking to gain that attention. It doesn't matter. You just want to keep talking. It doesn't matter what it's about. Talk about your life. Talk about the game. Talk about your dog, your cat.
Talk about something that's coming up. Like if you're in school, talk about a project you're working on.
Talk about that weird hair you found in your belly button. Well, yeah, you look at a lot of those top streamers. There are quite a lot of streamers out there that are very, very popular without a face cam, but they never shut up.
Right.
They're always talking. And that's why people are watching them. They're entertaining. They're always talking, and they don't need a webcam to entertain.
Right, exactly. And that's one of the things, is there are some people's personalities that have to be visual. Like they have to show their personality on a camera. And there's other people that can voice their personality. And there are those, like I said, exceptions to the rules, where there are those large streamers pulling thousands of viewers at a time with no webcam. And there are smaller streamers that are like, oh, I have this really nice webcam and spent all this money on lighting and it looks really good, but nobody's watching me. Because if you go into those channels, they're sitting there with a controller in their hand, just and not talking, where those larger streamers with no camera don't shut up. They're constantly talking. And if they're paused, it's because they're taking a drink of water or something. Like, they just don't shut up. They're constantly talking. They'll talk for 6, 7, 8 hours straight, or take a couple breaks or whatever, but they just don't shut up. Even if it's to go back to Sheriff Eli, like, he doesn't talk with chat the whole time, but he's talking about the game, talking about life, telling stories, what have you. And then when he gets a break in the game, he'll address chat, talk to chat. But the thing is, he never shuts up. Like, if there's something dull in the game, he'll check on chat, converse with chat, and then go back into another story.
Well, yeah, like one of the things that I like to do, especially if I know I'm going to be quiet, this is a habit that I've grown into, and I personally think it's a healthy habit. I'm like, okay, guys, give me a second. I'm sorry I'm being quiet, but I need to think about my next move in the game. Which, of course, you're playing a game, but don't be shy about saying, hey, I'm going to be quiet right now. You know, because then people will wait. Somebody will hear that and wait instead of leaving your stream, because you might say it at the right moment when somebody comes into your stream where you need to be quiet when you're thinking about a next move, or you're just thinking about something to say. Because there are times where you need to think about whatever you're going to say. You just don't want to blow out something and say something stupid.
Thanks for joining us for this discussion. If you have any tips or tricks for avoiding dead air, put them in the comments below. Our next video will be about using push-to-talk while streaming with other broadcasters. The next video will be uploaded on RickLovesBacon's channel, so be sure to follow the links below.
If you guys would like to discuss this live, make sure to follow ADJMass on Twitch and myself on Twitch.
And I went and picked out the most juiciest granny apple that melted in my mouth, right? Like, you can... Sounds like what?
That sounds like a soggy apple.
It was juicy, okay?